Hello, everyone. This is Ashutosh Sinha. Pick your cup of coffee or tea, and let's take a thought break today again. This is your weekend show, and for the next few minutes of Through Your Life, we will step off the treadmill and look at how your compass can be reset to focus and find your true north. Today on the show, I have Mr. Jayant Khosla. Jayant is someone who has been a leader in the industry with stellar credentials. And I'm Ahmedabad DCE pass out way early, but over the years, he has been through various multinationals, global multinationals in India and abroad, and been the MD and CEO of quite a few companies. Jayant, very warm welcome to you. And it's such a proud moment to have you on my show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, and good afternoon, Ashu. Always a pleasure meeting you.
Thank you, Jayant. Jayant, I have always heard about you and known you as a person who is very polite and humble, and at the same time has this huge sense of approach and understanding of business, which comes from long years through multinational organizations and your stellar background in education as well. I want to go right back to your education when you came out and joined GSK from your IIM Ahmedabad days. And I'm sure you never thought you'll become the managing director and CEO of large organizations over years. What was in your mind and what took you on the path? Some quick shares from a personal diary will be very helpful.
Thank you. No, it's really nice reminiscing all those nice times. I must say I was fortunate to have worked in the different organizations I have. And more than that, the mentors which I have had in those organizations, whether as supervisors or other colleagues. So what I recall about GlaxoSmithKline, that time called HMM, that famous Horlicks company. Horlicks is a Lever's brand now, but that time it was one of the few multinationals, FMCGs, housed in North India along with Nestle. So it was a very difficult task getting into that if one doesn't want it to move base into Western India that time. I think I was lucky that I got into an organization wherein the work value systems, which I think are of equal proportion, if not more, like a personal value system, I could discover what they are, and more importantly, I could see the congruence, that it is the value system which you have, which have to reflect in your life wherever you are. So I crossed that bridge, that what the personal value systems are, even in the workplace, with different terminologies, the basics of honesty, integrity, hard work, empathy, those are the things which I learned in GlaxoSmithKline. And what again one picked up was that while you do keep on dreaming about ivory towers, but life never provides a lift to anybody. So you always have to do it step by step, and that is perhaps the best to do it, because unless you strengthen the foundation, unless you know the art and science of wearing a swimming costume under the three-piece suit so that you can straddle across the organization from strategy to execution to empathy. Those were great learnings, which I've always had.
Immense. What were the triggers, Jayant, which kind of kept you going? Because it takes a lot of, courage and time and patience to go through the corporate world and be where you are today. Any 3 or 4 key values which you just mentioned, you'd like to advise to youngsters who are coming out of the career today, because they can help steadfast to?
Well, Ashu, I must say, I'm the first youngster standing in the line. So every day, I still get up wanting to learn, unlearn, and relearn myself. And it couldn't be a better day than today, Teachers' Day, 5th September, in which to all the gurus, you and I must bow and be grateful.
Absolutely.
So I bow to you with that respect as well, because with every interaction, one learns, unlearns, and relearns. Well, I am no philosophy teacher or a training guru, Ashu. I've actually learned a lot from you personally at various interactions. But I can just say what has helped me, and maybe it is a part of growing up, it's a part of being observant, staying hungry, a streak of madness, never say die, never give up, always trying to do better than yesterday. And one thing which I picked up, and this is with lots of mistakes, and I must say, means for example, in my case, somebody helped me do this introspection. That if the most important thing in your life is your motivation, because that is what drives your passion, then don't leave that key of motivation to anybody. And you should,
Beautiful.
and if it is so critical, which has an impact on how you behave, how you perform, you become your toughest supervisor and you control this most important key rather than giving it to anybody and then the VUCA index going up. So we have all heard that adage, harder you become, harder you work, luckier you become. And the ability to deep dive, execution focused, looking for that customer centric +1, staying hungry, like I said, and never give up. One thing which I would want to leave is never give up and do better than yesterday. And I think the overall positivity which comes in, you create that environment in which everybody gets ingrained in that, teamwork follows, empathy I think is more important. And these are not just words. This is the way you live your life. And this is what people should observe in your behavior day in and day out, even if you're entering a restroom versus just sitting in a boardroom. So I think
Very well said.
That is what one has.
No, I think those are great takeaways, I think, and I just hope our listeners, whether they are young executives, or I think that applies even to mid-career executives, because it is immense, or even a CEO for that matter, young CEO who is making his career on the path. So that's really immense, Jen. That takes me to a very different question. Today, I was talking to someone, and I realized that one thing which seems to be a common fear in people's mind is about changing a career. When I say that is, people have gone to a certain career, but in the middle of the career or industry, they fear to change the industry or change tracks on a career. And they are being pushed by the economy to do that sometimes. So it's a strange world nowadays, and uncertainty levels going up every day. Any advice to professional careerists or even young startup folks who want to get going on their own journey?
Well, advice is something which I'll graduate into maybe after 10 years. Like I said, I'm still in the early part of my career. But I can just say being nimble, which basically means knowing that I don't know it all, but wanting to unlearn and learn. Being frugal on personal count so that you don't have to cross deserts and jump towers. So you keep the asking rate what is reasonable so that you play on the front foot. And I think courage is a very important word which I picked up earlier on. So if at the end of the day, you get everything to brass tacks, I was lucky that I got an opportunity to work across industries, across continents. And the only thing which helped me in good stead was the ability to understand what are the revenue drivers, what are the cost drivers, cash flow is king, managing the stakeholders and ecosystem, knowing the 360-degree, and the whole madness to say that I'll work the hardest and doing deep planning, focusing on execution, taking the team along. I will be only as good as the team. And the success is not only because of me, but it is of the entire team. So having that empathy, and therefore providing a facilitating environment. Industry, I don't have to master the industry. I must realize that each industry is different, but depending upon the category you are in, customer centricity, figuring out the plus one, delivering it in letter and spirit. I think those are the foundations which are like value systems in corporate life on how one goes about in the profession. If one gets into that, then I think the task becomes much easier and it's a happy journey. I have straddled across insurance, logistics, FMCG, beverages, now beauty and wellness, but the basics of customer centricity, plus one, deep dive, hunger, passion, ambition, I think God is kind, life is blessed, and opportunity to make lots of mistakes and get up quickly. I think it is very important that one focuses on what you want and what you're looking for. I'll share with you, I have done what are so-called very tough punishment postings, whether it was in Moscow in late 90s or Saudi Arabia 10 years back, and sitting where I was sitting in the comfort of East Coast and West Coast in US, or in India and Dubai. Even my extended family said, why? And the point which I'm trying to make is, you can find happiness wherever you are if you look for happiness. If I try finding for things which are not there, I'll be unhappy. So instead, if I try appreciating and finding happiness in what is there, location, industry, those become a very happy companion in the journey.
Wow.
So it's the mindset with which you get up. Am I going to be happy and a winner today, or am I going to be sulking? And then the ecosystem comes together.
Superb. And that's exactly what I think, senior executives and even young executives lose themselves into, because they start relating too much to the environment to lead them to their happiness versus being there inside and leading the environment itself. So that's amazing. And I've seen that you have led the environment most of the time, from whatever I've heard and seen of you every time. So that's coming from you makes a lot of sense, Jayant. Jayant, one thing which when someone is in their mid-career stream of life, and this is a good segue to what you just said, family pulls and pressures, the urge to make more money, the urge to be ambitious, all that is on one track. And the other side is what's happening is, you are kind of growing slightly older in age, you are having children who are growing up as well, and you want to balance both the priorities. And somewhere executives make the classic mistake of going after maybe money or something which takes them away from their main course of journey, something which they're truly passionate about, something where they can be very real to themselves and give value to not only themselves, but to the organization or the society. Any thoughts on that, and what have you seen around that in your journey, and to others if you want to talk about that?
Well, very deep question, Ashu, and I'm sure you know it is a deep one. Okay, let me try simplifying it. It's very simple to complicate things, and it's very complicated to keep things simple. So what appears to be simple requires a lot of hard work. You've seen that duck, which seems like sailing very coolly on a lake, in a lake, but underneath paddling like there is no tomorrow for the life. So let me try simplifying it. It's like each Indian, earlier I used to use, has, the acronym ABC. So 2 out of these 3 acronyms every Indian has as his passion: astrology, Bollywood, cricket. So you pick up anybody, if you can relate with 2 of these, you can tell me he's an Indian from whatever part of the country. Well, so let me give you you see, I think both are important. I wouldn't say career, ambition, designation, money is different than what you do, but it's like a batsman. he knows the score has to tick, but the eye has to be on the ball. If the eye is on the scorecard, he'll be standing next to the scorecard. He'll not be in the pitch. So one must know what the ball is. One must know the ecosystem, therefore where the fielders are, what the natural tendencies to play are, and play, and the ball should appear like a football. That much should be the focus and the attention and the preparation so that the scoreboard keeps moving. Are you with me? So, and why does a batsman want that? Batsman wants that and the eyes on the scorecard so that his average keeps on going up. The number of centuries he makes keeps on going up. And why is that? Because he wants to change the playing field. He wants to move in from a inter-college to an inter-university, to a state, to a national, to an international level. Per se, the average and the centuries don't count. But that is what helps him graduate from an inter-college, inter-university, state level, national level, international level. So one is a means, the other is a journey. And
very well put.
And to me, one must not link up the scorecard with the ball and vice versa. That's when you mess up. So you shouldn't say you shouldn't say I'm going to hit a 4 over here, because then you are seeing the scorecard in the ball. You must see the ball is coming, where is it coming, know what the field is, and play accordingly. You shouldn't be worried about the scorecard, and instead of looking at the ball, look at the scorecard, otherwise you'll be walking back to the pitch. So neither is scorecard the ball, nor is ball the scorecard. But both are important.
What a lovely analogy, excellent. And I totally get it what you're saying, because the journey and the in the moment, play is so unique, but yet so connected. And one has to be in the moment to hit that ball right, be aware about the surroundings, because otherwise you totally lose yourself trying to. I totally got the answer. And this is really well put, Jayant. Further, let's dig it a little deeper on the side, is that, there are people who may be watching the ball using the same analogy, and, they want to, they're aware of the environment, they're doing the best to focus and hit their runs and run between the wickets. But at the same time, sometimes they get saddled by the environmental factors in the organization, which could be led to partly economics pressures of cost hitting organization, or simply other colleagues and peers they may not relate to, and they lose track of what they're doing. A lot of this happens, especially in around mid-30s and early 40s. Definitely, a lot of executives in the 40s talk about this, that, they suddenly seem to be losing track and focus and getting deviated just because of environmental factors within the organization. How can they stay focused and be on the journey? Because they are basically good people. They want to go and hit the ball well. They want to really score the runs, but they get deviated because of factors not in their control. And that is the dilemma a lot of them face, I hear.
So Ashu, I've got two responses to this, and I am not saying I know the answer. I can just share with you what I have practiced, and I'm really blessed and grateful to God and to all around to see that I haven't had an accident on this count. I think having courage, having an inner belief that I have got up to add value, I am working hard to me is a very important element. You see, and this is sheer physical hard work, detailed, deep dive, not leaving things to chance, planning and preparation, and then focus on execution, day in, day out, every second, every micron, and then have the ability to not abdicate, but to delegate as and when needed based on the environment. To me, this is the core. And like I said, I think reading is very important, which I see a lot of youngsters, while it might be an old-fashioned hobby, but reading, keeping yourself abreast, reverse mentoring. I started doing it way back in my career, and always interacting with who your potential customers are, having them tell you how they look at life, and always be, I was giving an example, having the customer sit in your strategy room, doing reverse mentoring and having a millennial, a management trainee, having lunch with him twice in a week, or different sets of people, so that you stay afresh and on the ball going forward. Another thing which I mentioned in the past, and I think I would want to repeat, again I say it to my sons, stay frugal. Have the competency to earn like a prince and a king, but stay frugal so that your asking rate is down. Your run rate should be high, your asking rate should be low. And keep on changing the tabs as time goes along. The same batsman we were talking about, the example, let's say rains have come in, Doug Lewis' message is coming on, now he has got to do in Mission Impossible what he thought he had 3 overs, he has now got 1 over left. If he would have kept an eye on the run rate, ask rate would have been more reasonable. What happens? When the ask rate becomes very high, that is when you start having doubts on your own self. It's the same capacity. What is the diameter of your pipeline will determine how high you go. So if the diameter of your pipeline is very high, the volume is the same, you will not go very high. So,
true. Very true.
So I think you got to manage both sides of the equation. And I'm not saying you should splurge, but you should do it with your eyes and ears open. Is it sustainable? Is it scalable? And there is no harm in having basic living values, which are more traditional and grounded. Now, that might not find lots of agreement with the majority, but there is nothing right or wrong, it's a perspective. And I've just shared with you what has worked for me without casting any judgment that this is right or wrong.
I think my personal view as well is absolutely right, because that's the way I have also seen my limited career, that it really experienced so far matters a lot. And I truly agree, and that advice is beautiful, Jayant. And the way you also spoke about the same analogy is also come out very well. So brilliant.
Can I just add on one more?
Yes, please.
Another, whether it is unintended or it is planned, a consequence of that is that it gives you the risk-taking abilities at a much higher level. Because you know the asking rate is not very high. So you want to experiment, you want to pilot, you want to innovate, you want to disrupt. You have that leeway. And
super.
Then you see, it helps you actually graduate in a much higher level, from the school level to the college level to the university level to the state level to the national level to the international level. So by doing this, you are actually putting it on an exponential explosion in a smart manner.
Super.
So to me,
I'm going to...
So to me, it is like insurance. And there are lots of us who don't get the meaning of insurance. But to me, this is insurance. To me, this is life and professional insurance.
It is very well put. In fact, by every means, it kind of helps you to be taking higher risk and gives you early insurance for that. So well stated. And I'm going to pick this one for my next blog. I'm going to really use this analogy. It's come out so well. So I really, wonderful, wonderful. Just enjoyed it thoroughly. Jayant, something, you know, interesting I have noticed in executives who are doing very well and who are very competitive in their life, in their career, uh, that sometimes uh, they get hit by what I call is, you know, this is a research I've done recently for a book of mine, is EKD. I termed it experiential knowledge dump. You know, there's so much experience in their minds that they they start on, you know, their observations, which are based on their EKD, their experiential knowledge in their mind, and they stop looking at the science outside. They stop looking at the ground level noise. They stop looking at the intuition they earlier had in the beginning of their career. And there have been multiple examples of uh, friends and senior executives in the industry who have realized a little too late that they were not even listening to the environment or to the ground level scenario, and things overtook them, you know, much faster than they could imagine. Uh, how does one? You said something very nice that, you know, stay frugal, stay honest to yourself, stay to the core. From listening, two topics I would like you to touch. You know, if you could please advise, or even from your experience book, take out any stories. One is on listening, and second, you earlier said mentoring, reverse mentoring. You know, these two are definitely very important tools anyone can have in the kit as a leader, or even as a leader in the making. Could you please dwell on that?
So to me, listening is akin to being like a sponge. And just imagine a sponge, it keeps on absorbing whatever comes in.
Very
And
true.
after that, you got to internalize it. One thing which I have learned about listening is being like a sponge. And second is, don't be an Amitabh Bachchan. You don't have to agree, disagree, put it in buckets. Sponge doesn't distinguish when it is absorbing, whether it is water, whether it is any other beverage, whether it is tea, it is absorbing without evaluating.
Very true.
And then you decide what you like, what you don't like, what is relevant, what is phase two. But I actually learned it in a classroom, how to listen. Now that was decades back. I'm sure the youth of today has lots of options available on internet and Google, but I think this is an art which can be converted into science, and one can consciously work on listening. And once you start listening, you actually are on a +1, because you have had your cake and you have eaten it too, and you haven't shown it to anybody. So you absorb, listen, reflect, and then do what you have to. I'm not for a minute saying hide, but bake it as you wish, rather than responding like a shuttlecock. That is my take on it. Hands up. I'm not saying I practice it. I try practicing it. I fail, but then I keep a count how many times I have failed. And every day I try failing one lesser, but I still fail. Reverse mentoring, as I shared with you, and this is 15 years back. I'm sure the word millennial was coined by then, but I was in telecom. We were trying to sell value-added services. You know the Indian telecom story and the penetration level and the ARPU and the minutes of usage. So I was lucky enough to be a part of that journey. And then we figured out, in this value-added services selling, the way I think, the way my circle thinks is not what my customer is. And the youth of today has a different definition of what music, what melody, what lyrics, how does she want to pay, bulk deals, night calling. And all this came about just by listening to that millennial who was a management trainee and a set of management trainees, and it was very cheap, just giving them a lunch, and they would open their heart out. And if you are listening, then they keep in touch with you. They keep on feeding it to you. Now it's up to me whether I listened or I just ticked the box. So I was lucky, and I would still do it. So I would actually walk around the office and invite somebody for lunch with me whom I know the least. Because sitting down in an informal environment with people whom I know, the dialogue is very predictable. So why do I want more of everything? I want it different, and then it is up to me whether I incorporate it in the equation or I just put it in the storage.
Very right. Very right. Superb. You know, the reverse mentoring as well as the listening goes hand in hand.
It is never too late to be who you always wanted to
be. You surprised me with that, Jayant. I didn't realize you have my book there. You totally got me there. So,
listen. Reading is a very nice hobby, and unless I read 1.5 hours a day, I just can't sleep.
It is something which I have learned late in my life, but I've loved it, and it's the best mentor one can get, just to keep books by your side and finish at least. I mean, my habit which I picked up is that, you know, as I used to aim for finishing 2 in a month. That's very hard. I started doing 1 in a month, but I've kept at it. And it's very possible in today's digital world. You can read on the book in the plane or on your Kindle or on your earphone, but you know, books are books, and they're great mentors. I totally agree with you. Excellent. I know it's a coffee show in a way, and people's you know, cup of coffee, I told them to hold it in a hand, and it may be getting cold. So I'm going to try to. This conversation has been so interesting. I went longer than my usual time because I think there's some great value coming out of it for everyone who's listening to it. I will venture on to ask one more wrap-up question, and we will call it a day, Jayant. And thank you so much for your time so far, and keeping me and yourself really aligned to what others can take away from the show. So thank you so much. This is a very unusual question, but quite a cliched one at the same time. Jayant, what is your inner calling? What's your sense of purpose? And do you think that is important for people who are in the midstream of the career to connect to the same?
Wow. Inner calling is a deep word. Inner calling also keeps on changing, at least as far as I'm concerned. I can say, and maybe it's not politically the right thing to say, but inner calling, in my mind, if I have to describe what is inner calling, it's the source and motivation of what drives me. The inherent source and motivation, the DNA of what makes me do what I do or what I don't do. So, and like I said, my definition of inner calling has changed. Somewhere it was, how do I make my first $1 million? How do I get this designation? And it quickly graduated onto, at one point of time, I lived with it for a decade, saying at my graveyard, I would want 100 people to come in at least, who when going out, tell my sons, your father touched me and that is why I'm a CEO. So that's what drove me for a while. Now what drives me is actual happiness, saying how can I make people and myself happy? And I don't know what it will be tomorrow, but to me, whatever it is, whether it changes, I don't know what's the right answer, but stay true to what your inner calling is. To me, there is nothing right or wrong or better or worse. Your actions, your behavior, your experience must be in sync with your inner calling. If there is a digression there, that is when frustration, depression, and you get into a negative energy zone. So if I have to say, saying respect your inner calling, because there is nothing right or wrong, so don't evaluate whether it is versus his mind superior. Respect your inner calling, live your inner calling, otherwise your journey will not be happy. That's what I would want to leave at that.
Jayant, beautiful once again. And that's very, very well put. I've been, talking to many people, and that's one of the best ways I've heard inner calling, a sense of purpose being put, and especially the fact that you said something which is immense and very deep, actually, and do want to underscore that point that if you are not connected to your sense of purpose or inner calling, and it can evolve, people, it doesn't have to be like this one star sitting at the corner of your wall. Uh, then you obviously lose peace with yourself somewhere. And, your whole journey of making a career or money does not necessarily be very meaningful beyond a point. So superb, Jayant. Thank you so much for your time. It's I wish I could just carry on. It's such an amazing conversation, but this pandemic has its own advantage that we're finding time to connect over digital media, and it's such amazing conversation. Jen, thank you very, very much.